The day Evelyn Sterling brought her one that got away, the guy who was supposed to be living abroad, back for the family gala, everyone expected me to have a total meltdown. After all, I used to be the kind of guy who couldn't sleep if another man so much as looked at her. I was a neurotic mess, constantly terrified of losing her. But that night, I simply placed a peeled shrimp on my own plate and gave the man a polite, distant smile. Mr. Vance, if you don't mind, you can have this bowl of birthday pasta. I haven't touched it, and honestly, I've grown tired of the taste. Evelyn didn't realize that I wasn't just tired of the food. I was tired of her. The Sterling estate always smelled of aged cedarwood mixed with the heavy scent of roasting fats from the kitchen. I stood by the head table, watching Julian Vance sit in the seat I had occupied for the last 3 years. He wore an ill-fitting white suit, collar open, leaning in to whisper something to Evelyn. Whatever he said made the Ice Queen of Chicago actually crack a smile. The air in the room curdled. Evelyn's relatives froze, their forks mid-air, their eyes turning toward me like spotlights. I saw it all: mockery, pity, and the gleeful anticipation of a scene. How would the old me have handled this? I would have turned beet red, marched over there, and tried to haul Julian out of my chair to claim my territory. Then Evelyn would have humiliated me in front of everyone, and I would have ended the night in a corner, despondently peeling walnuts for her as an apology. In their social circle, it was common knowledge I was the Sterling's lapdog. But today I just felt tired. It was a bone-deep exhaustion, like a rusted gear that had been forced to turn for too long until it finally snapped. Caleb, what are you standing there for? Evelyn finally looked up, her brow furrowed in that signature look of hers. It was the look she gave when she was losing her patience. We pulled up an extra chair over there. Go sit. Julian just got back into the country, and I have things to discuss with him. She said it with such casual entitlement, without a shred of guilt. Julian offered a well-timed, performative look of apology. He started to stand, but Evelyn pressed a hand firmly on his shoulder to keep him seated. Sorry, Caleb. Maybe I should— No need, I interrupted. My voice was so steady it surprised even me. I pulled out a folding chair at the very end of the table, the seat usually reserved for the help, and sat down. Mr. Vance is a guest. A host should always accommodate their guests. Evelyn's hand on Julian's shoulder stiffened. She stared at me, searching my face for even a hint of repressed rage. She found nothing. I picked up my fork and took a bite of some sautéed bitter melon. It was sharp and unpleasant, but it kept me focused. A server approached with a delicate tray, carrying the evening's special, a low-sugar black forest cake. I had spent 2 weeks coordinating with a Michelin-starred pastry chef for this. Evelyn was watching her sugar intake, but had a weakness for sweets. I'd gone through 10 different recipes before settling on this one. The server instinctively moved toward the head of the table. Wait, I said, putting down my fork. That cake isn't fresh. Take it back. The server blinked, confused. Mr. Thorne, this was just delivered. I said, take it back. I looked at the server. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried a cold, professional finality. Or throw it out. I don't care. A dead silence fell over the table. Evelyn's face darkened visibly. She slammed her fork on her china plate with a sharp clack. Caleb, what kind of tantrum is this? Right now? In front of everyone. She hissed, her voice laced with warning. In the past, that tone would have sent me into a spiral of panicked apologies, like a schoolboy caught misbehaving. Now I just found it noisy. I dabbed my mouth with a silk napkin and stood up. My apologies, everyone. Please, enjoy your meal. I have a conference call at the office. I'll be heading out. No argument. No hysterics. No tears. I simply turned and walked toward the exit. I heard the screech of a chair behind me. Evelyn standing up, but she must have sat back down quickly. Julian probably grabbed her arm, whispering for her not to worry about someone as emotionally unstable as me. The moment I stepped out the front doors, the night wind rushed into my collar. It was cold, but incredibly bracing. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Evelyn. Car keys. She didn't even bother with a full sentence. She was certain that, like every other time, I would be waiting in the freezing wind for 3 hours just to act as her chauffeur. I pulled the Porsche keys from my pocket and looked at the security booth near the gate. With a casual flick, the keys landed perfectly in the security guard's lost and found bin. I texted her back, left them in the bin at the security gate. Consider tonight overtime. I'll be charging triple for my lost hours. Check your email for the invoice. Then I blocked her and locked my screen. The sequence of events was so fluid it barely gave my brain time to process it. I knew this was just the beginning. The first night of detox is always the hardest, but I had to push through. 6 a.m. My internal clock woke me up right on schedule. Muscle memory urged me to roll out of bed, head to the kitchen, and warm a glass of water to exactly 113 degrees before starting on a tedious nutritional breakfast. Evelyn had a sensitive stomach. She needed warm oatmeal made from steel-cut oats soaked overnight, simmered for exactly 1 hour. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, forcibly suppressing the serval impulse. I counted my heartbeats. 1, 2. It was a conditioned reflex built over years of training. Stay down, I commanded myself. You quit, Caleb. This isn't your job anymore. I rolled over, pulled the duvet over my head, and forced my eyes shut. I didn't get up until 7:30. I showered, shaved, and put on a set of workout gear I hadn't touched in ages. The man in the mirror looked a little pale, but his eyes were sharper than they had been in years. To be at her beck and call, I had sacrificed everything: hobbies, health time. I'd had a gym membership for 3 years and had gone maybe 5 times. My abs had long since softened into a flat, doughy middle. Evelyn used to mock me for it. Caleb, you can barely even carry me anymore. Back then, I just gave her a stupid grin. I'll work on it. I never told her that I had a chronic back injury from the time I carried her 3 miles home in the rain when she was too drunk to walk. I put on my headphones and headed to the gym in my building. The rhythmic hum of the treadmill drowned out the persistent buzzing of my phone. I knew it was her. 7:50 was her wake-up time. Without my wake-up call, without her warm water, without her perfectly steamed blouse, she was definitely going to be late today. But my focus was on the numbers on the screen. 3 miles. 4. 5. Sweat poured down my forehead, stinging my eyes. That pure, physical pain felt strangely wonderful. I didn't step off the machine until 9. I checked my phone. 23 missed calls. All from Evelyn. The last text was from 10 minutes ago. Caleb, where the hell are you? Where are my stomach meds? I actually laughed out loud. We'd been together for 3 years, and she didn't even know which drawer her own medicine was in. She'd never had a look. Every time she so much as winced, the water and the pills were already at her lips. I tossed my phone into the locker and didn't reply. I took a hot shower, letting the water wash away the grime and the stress. When I stepped out, my phone lit up again. This time it was a bank alert. Your secondary credit card has been frozen. A text from Evelyn followed immediately. I've cut off your cards. Let's see how long this tough guy act lasts. Crawl back and apologize when you run out of money. She thought I was still living off her. She thought I was just some trophy husband candidate who couldn't survive outside the Sterling ecosystem. The truth was, I had never used that card for personal items. Every transaction on it was for her: limited edition bags, gifts for Julian, or supplies for her family's parties. My own savings were more than enough for me to live very comfortably. I sent a quick reply. Please settle the dry cleaning bill I covered last month. The invoice is on the hallway table. After sending it, I grabbed my gear and left the gym. As I walked through the lobby's coffee shop, I saw a familiar scene. Julian Vance was holding a cup of coffee, eagerly handing it to Evelyn as she stepped out of a car. Evelyn looked pale, clearly suffering from low blood sugar and a stomach ache from skipping breakfast. She took a large gulp of the coffee, and her face instantly twisted. She looked like she was about to vomit right there on the sidewalk. It was too sweet. It was a full-sugar caramel macchiato. She only drank oat milk lattes with 1/3 sugar, extra hot, with thick foam. Julian looked clueless. What's wrong, Eve? That's the most expensive one on the menu. Evelyn threw the coffee into a trash can, rubbing her temples in frustration. She instinctively looked around the crowd, her eyes searching for the man who always carried a thermos of tea for her. I stood in the shadows of the revolving door, watching the disappointment in her eyes. I didn't step out. I just pulled my cap lower and exited through the side door. Miss Sterling, the hard times are only just beginning. Day 3. A torrential downpour hit the city. Chicago's drainage has its limits, and whenever it pours, the streets turn into a parking lot. I was sitting in a gallery lounge, discussing the details of an upcoming photography exhibit with a young curator named Maya Quinn. She was sharp, with an eye for detail. Mr. Thorne, these shots. She pointed to a black and white print in my portfolio. The lighting is very restrained, but the perspective feels suffocating, like you're looking up at someone from a place of deep repression. I looked down. It was a shot of Evelyn's back. In 3 years, her back was the thing I had photographed most. That won't be happening anymore, I said, pulling the photo out and flipping it face down on the table. Let's swap it for this set. These landscapes are shot at eye level. Maya smiled and was about to respond when my phone screen lit up on the table. The caller ID read A. Evelyn Sterling. I had added the years ago just to make sure she was always the first name in my contacts. Looking at it now, that felt like a brand of shame. I didn't hang up, but I didn't answer either. I just hit the silent button. The screen continued to pulse in the dim light of the gallery. Maya politely stopped talking, looking a bit awkward. Aren't you going to take that? It's pouring out there. It might be an emergency. I picked up my tea and blew on the steam. It isn't. In the past, even if I was mid-shower, I would have sprinted out in a towel to answer. Even if I was in a high-stakes meeting, I would have risked offending a client to take her call. I knew she was terrified of thunder, got road rage in the rain, and was a terrible driver. Outside, the rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows, blurring the city's neon lights into smears of color. The call timed out. Then it started again. I could see her in my mind. She was probably stuck on the Kennedy Expressway, car stalled, or trapped in a gridlock. Julian Vance, that empty suit, would be useless. He was either not picking up or was getting wasted at his own welcome-home party. Julian was great at being there for the celebrations, but he never showed up for the struggle. Mr. Thorne, Maya asked tentatively. I snapped back to the present and flipped the phone face down. Let's continue. We were talking about the lighting for the main hall. We talked for another 2 hours. My phone buzzed countless times before finally going silent. By the time I left the gallery, the rain had stopped. The air smelled of wet asphalt and earth. I checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls and one voicemail. I accidentally hit play. The audio was noisy, the frantic sound of wipers and heavy breathing. Evelyn's voice was shaking, thick with tears. Caleb, what the hell are you doing? My car broke down on the shoulder of the highway, and I'm scared. Just come get me. The message cut off. For a split second, a flash of genuine worry crossed my mind. But it was gone in an instant. It was like a mosquito bite, an itch that faded as soon as it arrived. I opened a rideshare app and checked the traffic near the highway. It was deep purple, total gridlock. I closed the app and walked into a nearby convenience store to buy an umbrella. Since she chose to bring Julian back, she should let Julian handle the car repairs, the rain, and her temper tantrums. That's the price of growing up. The next day, I saw the aftermath through a mutual friend's Instagram story. Evelyn had caught a fever, 102 degrees. The photo showed her in a hospital bed, looking haggard, while Julian sat by her side peeling an apple. Word among friends was that while she was delirious with fever, she kept grabbing Julian's hand and calling out for Caleb. When she woke up and saw it was Julian, she threw a fit and knocked the fruit bowl across the room. Julian played the hero, claiming he had braved the storm to carry her to safety. I knew he was lying. I'd seen a post he'd made that night, tagged at a bar with the caption "Rainy Night Vibes," which he deleted quickly. I had the screenshot. I didn't bother exposing him. Looking at the photo of Evelyn's eyes, full of resentment even while sick, I just felt relieved. Relieved that the person sitting there acting as her emotional punching bag was no longer me. I closed Instagram and texted Maya. I've reviewed the contract. It looks good. I'll come by to sign tomorrow. My new life was taking shape, piece by piece. As for Evelyn, I hope she enjoyed her old dreams while they rotted away. The auction house was chilled by aggressive air conditioning, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and old paper. I sat in the third row on the right, flipping through the heavy velvet catalog. I was there on behalf of a new high-profile client, a collector of vintage jewelry who wanted a specific piece called the Tear of the Deep, a sapphire brooch. It was a strange coincidence. 3 years ago, Evelyn had pointed to that exact brooch in a fashion magazine and offhandedly remarked, "That color would really bring out my eyes." I had made a mental note of it and saved for 3 years, intending to surprise her for her birthday tomorrow. Fortunately, the surprise now belonged to my client, and the money stayed in my pocket. 500,000, a bored female voice called out from the front. I looked up. Evelyn was holding her paddle, looking back at me. She was wearing a plunging black gown, her neck long and elegant like a proud black swan. Julian sat next to her, fussing over her as he draped his blazer over her shoulders. Her gaze was full of a haughty certainty. She clearly thought I was there to bid on the brooch as a peace offering to her. In her mind, all my savings and efforts were destined to flow back to her. I ignored her look and calmly raised my paddle. 550,000. A smirk played on Evelyn's lips. She seemed to think this was me showing my devotion, bankrupting myself for her. 600,000, she countered, tilting her head provocatively. Julian whispered with a chuckle. Caleb's trying to play a little game with you, Eve, driving up the price just to buy it for you anyway. I remained expressionless. 650,000. The market value was around 800,000. My client had authorized me up to $1 million. But my role wasn't just as an agent. I was a cold-blooded tactician. Evelyn clearly didn't want a game to end so soon. 800,000. She jumped the bid by 150,000, causing a small stir in the room. She turned around, mouthing the words "keep going" across the rows. I looked at her beautiful, entitled face and did the math. 800,000 was the ceiling of a fair price. Anything more was a bad investment. In the past, I would have kept going without hesitation just to see her smile, even if it meant eating ramen for a year. But now, I was a rational adult. I put down my paddle and closed the catalog. The auctioneer's voice rang out. 800,000, going once. The smile on Evelyn's face froze. 800,000 going twice. Julian started to panic, tugging on Evelyn's sleeve. Eve, why'd he stop? This, isn't 800,000 a bit much? I knew Julian didn't have money. His meager acting gigs couldn't cover the tax on that brooch, and while Evelyn was wealthy, her liquid assets were tied up. This was a massive hit to her personal accounts. I watched Evelyn's face turn pale as I took a sip of lemon water. Bitter but refreshing. 800,000. Third and final call. Sold. To the lady at paddle 18. The room offered a smattering of polite applause. No one envied her. They were professionals. They looked at her like a fool who had just overpaid by 200,000 for a piece of vintage jewelry. As the crowd dispersed, I was cornered at the exit. Evelyn was fuming, blocking my path, her chest heaving. Caleb, what the hell was that? Weren't you going to buy that for me? Why did you stop? I adjusted my cuffs, my gaze moving past her to a very awkward Julian Vance. Miss Sterling, you've misunderstood. I pulled a formal representation contract from my briefcase and gave a quick wave. I was bidding on behalf of a client. My limit was 700,000. Since you were so determined to have it at 800, I thought it best to step aside. Evelyn went rigid. She stared at the contract as if trying to burn a hole through the paper. You were buying it for someone else? Obviously. I replied, my tone as flat as the weather report. Did you really think I was still the kind of idiot who would empty his life savings for a passing whim of yours? Julian tried to play peacemaker. Caleb, come on, that's cold. We're all friends here. Mr. Vance, I interrupted, glancing at the Patek Philippe on his wrist, another item bought on Evelyn's credit card. The payment deadline for that brooch is 24 hours. If you default, you lose the deposit and get blacklisted by every auction house in the city. Instead of trying to be my friend, maybe you should figure out how to scrape together 800 grand. I stepped around them and walked toward the car waiting at the curb. Behind me, Evelyn screamed, Caleb, get back here. I didn't look back. The car door shut, sealing out the noise. I pulled out my phone and messaged my client. Bid failed. The other party overpaid significantly. I advised against following. My client replied instantly. Thanks, Caleb. Rationality is key in this market. See, in the real world, being rational is praised. It was only in Evelyn Sterling's world that it was treated as a crime. Friday night. Deep Blue, a high-end lounge downtown. This was the usual spot for our social circle. The lighting was low, and jazz drifted through the smoke-tinged air. When I walked in, a burst of laughter erupted from the VIP booth. I bet a pack of Cubans that Caleb doesn't last 3 days, said Leo Miller, Evelyn's childhood friend who had always looked down on me. 3 days? You're giving him too much credit, another voice chimed in. I bet if Eve just snaps her fingers tonight, he'll be on his knees. Evelyn was sitting in the center of the leather sofa, swirling a glass of scotch. She didn't say anything, but she looked satisfied. Her other hand was scrolling through her phone. I knew what she was doing. She was hate-watching my social media. In the past, my Instagram was 90% Evelyn. Whether it was a photo of breakfast eggs or a flower on the sidewalk, she was always tagged with some mushy caption. It was a 7-year-old diary of a man obsessed. Now it was a blank slate. I'd set my profile to past 3 days only. And in those 3 days, there was only one photo, a shot from the gallery yesterday afternoon. In the photo, Maya and I were standing side by side in front of an oil painting titled Rebirth. I was in a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking intently at the art. Maya was looking at me, her gaze full of appreciation and a quiet, unspoken connection. There was no caption. That silence was more cutting than any angry words could have been. Clink. Evelyn slammed her phone face down on the table, the force rattling the ice in her glass. Who is that woman? She finally asked, her voice cold as ice. The booth went silent. Just then, the hostess opened the door. Mr. Thorne has arrived. All eyes snapped toward me. I walked in, but I wasn't alone. Maya was on my arm, wearing a tailored cream trench coat, her hair pulled back in a loose, effortless style. She radiated a kind of intellectual poise that a high-strung heiress like Evelyn could never emulate. Sorry we're late. I didn't even look at Evelyn as I led Maya toward an empty spot in the corner. Leo blinked, then smirked. Whoa, Caleb. New flavor of the week? Or did you just hire an extra to try and make Eve jealous? Julian sat next to Evelyn, peeling an orange and smiling with fake magnanimity. Caleb, that's not cool. Eve hasn't been feeling well lately, and you don't even check on her? And you bring a stranger? Maya looked at me, her eyes asking if she should speak up. I patted the back of her hand, signaling for her to relax. I took a glass of warm water from the server, placed it in front of Maya, and then looked at Leo. This is Maya Quinn. She's a curator, I said, my tone deliberate, and she's my current muse. The word muse made Evelyn's face turn a sickly shade of green. I used to say she was my life. Now, I was calling someone else my inspiration. A life can be lost, but a muse is a soul-level connection. In some ways, it was a much more exclusive title than girlfriend. Muse, Evelyn scoffed. She stood up abruptly, grabbing her glass as if to hurl it at the floor. But she stopped midair. She realized I wasn't even looking at her. I was leaning down, adjusting the air conditioning vent next to Maya's seat with a practiced, natural tenderness. That kind of meticulous care had once been Evelyn's exclusive privilege. Now, she was watching that privilege be handed to another woman. That sense of being replaced was far more painful than simple anger. She slowly set the glass down, her knuckles white. Fine. Great, she spat out, the words sounding like they were being crushed between her teeth. Caleb, I hope you can keep this performance up forever. I finally looked at her. My expression was calm, like I was watching a child throw a tantrum. Evelyn, life isn't a performance. I was acting for a long time and I got tired. I'd rather live for real now. A few rounds of drinks later, the atmosphere turned bizarre. No one dared to speak loudly. Everyone was busy gauging Evelyn's mood. Someone suggested a game of truth or dare. Cliché, but effective. The bottle spun and, predictably, pointed at me. Truth, I said, before they could even start cheering. The right to ask went to Evelyn. She stared at me, her eyes rimmed with red, a mix of alcohol and rage. Caleb, she used my full name. Did you ever actually love me? For even a second? Honestly, not because I'm a sterling, not because of the money. Did you love me? The room went dead silent. Julian stopped moving. Maya turned to look at me. It was a trap. If I said no, it would negate 7 years of my life and make me look like a liar. If I said yes, she'd think I still cared and was just playing hard to get. I leaned back against the sofa, swirling the soda in my glass. I did. Evelyn's eyes lit up, as if she'd found a lifeline. But I continued. It was the kind of love a kid has for Superman. What does that mean? She frowned. It means it was a fairy tale. When you're a kid, you think Superman is going to save the world, that he's the only light in your life. But I'm 30 now. I put the glass down and looked her in the eye. 30-year-olds don't believe in superheroes. And I've realized that underneath the suit, it's just an actor. You're comparing our relationship to a costume? Evelyn's voice trembled. Not just the relationship. I pointed to Julian sitting next to her. But your true love over there, too. Julian's face changed. Caleb, watch your mouth. Don't let the drinks talk for you. I chuckled softly. Julian, last month you lost $300,000 in Vegas. And Evelyn paid off, didn't she? Your artist persona? Evelyn pays the gallery rent. Even the clothes you're wearing right now were probably bought on her credit card. Shut up. Julian stood up, his face flushed with shame. I stayed seated, perfectly composed. That's the reality, Evelyn. The romance you believe in is just a curtain bought with sterling money. My job used to be the one behind the scenes, stitching that curtain back together whenever it tore. I'm done now. The curtain is ripped, and all you're left with is the clown behind it. Evelyn sat there stunned, her gaze darting between me and Julian. For the first time, she looked like she was about to cry in front of everyone. Not out of sentiment, but because her dignity had been stripped bare. She'd always thought she was the queen, and I was the lowly knight. Now she realized that without the knight's protection, she was just a girl being scammed by a grifter. Caleb, she suddenly grabbed a bottle of wine and took a massive swig directly from the neck. Red wine spilled down her chin, staining the white rug. It was a gruesome sight. Do you enjoy humiliating me? She slurred, pointing at me. If you love me once, how can you just take it back? How can you be so rational? I checked my watch. 11 p.m. Because when you're hurt past a certain point, the nerves just die, I said. I stood up and took Maya's hand. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. We have an exhibit to set up tomorrow. As I passed Evelyn, she suddenly reached out and grabbed my sleeve. Her grip was tight, her nails digging into my arm through the fabric. I'm not letting you go, she whispered, a note of desperation in her voice I'd never heard before. You never left me before 11. I looked down at her hand. Slender, pale, wearing a cheap cubic zirconia necklace Julian had given her as a gift, a placeholder for the sapphire brooch I didn't buy. She treated it like treasure. I didn't shove her. I just slowly, one by one, uncurled her fingers. Miss Sterling, that was the old me. Outside the bar, the cold wind hit us. Maya tactfully went to get the car, giving me a moment to handle the tale. Evelyn had followed me out. She stumbled onto the sidewalk, her heels clicking unevenly on the pavement. Caleb, she threw her arms around me from behind. The smell of heavy alcohol mixed with her expensive rose perfume enveloped me. I used to think it was the most intoxicating scent in the world. Now it just felt suffocating. My body reacted faster than my brain. I took a violent step forward, tearing myself out of her embrace. The movement was so sharp that Evelyn lost her balance and nearly fell. She clung to a lamppost, looking at me in shock. "You're dodging me?" Her voice was full of disbelief. "In the past, if I just reached out, you'd come running like a dog. Now I hug you and you dodge." I brushed off the spot where she'd touched me, as if cleaning off something dirty. "Evelyn, have some self-respect." "Self-respect?" She laughed like it was the funniest joke she'd ever heard, stumbling toward me. "We slept together for 3 years, and now you want to talk about self-respect? Don't act so holy, Caleb." She tried to get close again, reaching for my hand. I stepped back, maintaining a safe distance. "Do you smell that?" I asked suddenly. Evelyn froze. "What?" "The scent on me." I pulled at my collar. "You used to force me to wear that cold cedarwood cologne because you said it matched your taste. I actually hated it. It was too cold. It gave me a headache after a while." Evelyn instinctively sniffed the air. Right now, I smelled a faint, dry tobacco mixed with the scent of laundry soap from my freshly washed clothes. It was warm, rough, and real. It was the scent of Caleb Thorne, not the scent of an accessory to Evelyn Sterling. "You always tried to control everything about me, including how I smelled." I looked at her confused eyes. "This scent is who I am. And that rose perfume of yours? To me, it's just an allergen now." Evelyn's face went white under the streetlights. The physical rejection was more terrifying to her than my words. The body doesn't lie. Every pore of my being was recoiling from her. That physiological revulsion finally shattered her last illusion. "Caleb," she started to say something, but a black sedan pulled up to the curb. It was the Sterling family driver. I called him. "Take Miss Sterling home," I told the driver. The driver nodded respectfully and went to help her. Evelyn struggled, but I was already walking toward Maya's car. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was late. I flipped on the light in the entryway. 2 massive cardboard boxes were sitting by the door just delivered. I had packed them days ago, but hadn't sent them. Since the break was final now, I might as well be thorough. I took a photo and sent it to Evelyn. "These boxes contain every gift you gave me over the last 7 years. I had the watch fixed. It has a new strap. That shirt you bought in the wrong size. Never worn. Tags are still on it. All the little trinkets you gave me when you were in a good mood are there too. Sent." Then I added one more line. "Everything is returned. I don't owe you a single cent of emotional debt anymore. This is a clean break. If I was on a detox, I had to clear the house of every trace of the drug." I went into the bathroom. The man in the mirror finally looked clear-eyed. I turned on hot water and scrubbed away the last lingering scent of roses. From tomorrow on, Caleb Thorne would just be Caleb Thorne. Evelyn stared at those 2 returned boxes as if they were unexploded bombs. She didn't call a servant. She found a pair of scissors herself and sliced through the packing tape. The boxes were packed tight. On top was a Zegna shirt she'd picked up on a business trip to Italy. She bought it 2 sizes too big, and I'd never worn it. Below there was a Patek Philippe with a face I'd fixed myself using second-hand parts. There were lighters, tie clips, and even a car key she'd tossed at me once. She pulled them out one by one, her movements frantic, as if she were searching for a shred of lingering affection. Her hand finally hit a black leather notebook at the bottom of the box. It was my observation journal, or more accurately, my medical chart. I used to carry it everywhere. She thought I was recording her likes and dislikes, and used to mock me for it. "Caleb, is your memory really that bad? You have to write down that I hate cilantro." She opened the first page. The handwriting was neat, like a printout. March 12, 2018. Sunny. Subject's behavior. Threw a glass of red wine at me in public, called me a gold-digging dog. Physiological response. Heart rate 120, facial flushing, slight stomach cramping. Psychological evaluation. Pain level 3. Effective. I can still feel shame, which means the nerves haven't completely died. Evelyn's hand shook. She flipped forward. May 20th, 2019. Rainy. Subject's behavior. Stood me up to go to a movie with Julian Vance. Physiological response. Stood in the rain for 4 hours, core temperature dropped, legs went numb. Psychological evaluation. Pain level 4. Jealousy is faint, less intense than the physical cold. The medicine seems to be losing its effect. September 9th, 2020. Overcast. Subject's behavior. accepted the proposal. Physiological response, none. Psychological evaluation. I found myself thinking about the stock market instead. The treatment should end soon. Side effects are too high. ROI is too low. There wasn't a single romantic word in the entire book. It wasn't a diary of devotion. It was a cold, clinical experimental report. Evelyn's face went from red to white, and then to a deathly gray. She had always thought she was the benevolent goddess, and I was the begging dog. This journal told her the truth. She was the drug, the lab rat, the tool I used to confirm I was still alive. Caleb, she whispered as she saw the last line. Recommendation: stop medication, cut losses. The charm she prided herself on, the confidence that she controlled everything. It was all crushed by that black notebook. The most heartless person in the room had always been me. The Sterling Group crisis hit faster than I expected. It was inevitable. Evelyn had spent the last 2 years focused on her romance with Julian, leaving the core business full of holes. Monday morning, the company faced a massive PR nightmare. A whistleblower leaked reports that their cosmetics line contained heavy metals. The stock hit the floor at the opening bell. The boardroom was a disaster. Julian was there too, making things worse. Eve, the stock is tanking. Is my investment going to vanish? Maybe I should cash out my share now. Evelyn, already being torn apart by the board members, snapped her head toward him. You're talking about cashing out now? Well, I just want to minimize my losses. Julian muttered. The door swung open. I walked in wearing a sharp charcoal suit, briefcase in hand, 2 assistants trailing behind me. The room went silent. Caleb, what are you doing here? Julian jumped up as if stung. Come to gloat. I didn't even give him a glance. I walked to the projector and plugged in my laptop. I've been hired by the majority shareholders as a crisis management consultant. I opened a presentation, the red laser pointer hitting the data on the screen. The core of the issue is the authenticity of the lab reports. I've already contacted a third-party lab for independent testing. The press conference is at 2 p.m. Also, all affected batches are already being recalled. My voice was steady, my logic flawless. Every command was a surgical strike at the heart of the problem. Evelyn sat at the head of the table, watching me. This was a Caleb Thorne she'd never seen. Confident, professional, dominant. No more fawning, no more apologizing. I radiated a professional magnetism she couldn't look away from. Compared to me, the man sitting next to her, Julian, looked pathetic and small-minded. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Julian tried to interject several times, and I ignored him every single time. Caleb, what right do you have to tell my team what to do? Julian finally blurted out. I stopped and looked at him coldly. Mr. Vance, if you don't understand PR, shut up. Every second wasted here is literally millions of dollars. The Sterling Group can't afford your ignorance. Julian turned red and looked to Evelyn for help. This time, she didn't give it. She just stared at me with a complex mix of regret and sudden realization. She was finally seeing that the man who had been quietly cleaning up her messes for years was a titan once he stepped into the light. The day after the crisis was resolved, Evelyn asked to see me in her office to sign the termination papers. I knew it was an excuse to try and keep me. The room was private. She had made a pot of the tea I used to love and was wearing a simple white dress with minimal makeup. She was trying to look like the woman she thought I wanted. Caleb, thank you for everything, she said, her voice uncharacteristically soft. I think I underestimated your talent. If you're willing to come back, the VP position is yours. I didn't touch the tea. I pulled a document from my bag and laid it on the desk. Miss Sterling, business is done. Now let's settle the personal accounts. It was a printed Excel sheet. It was 15 pages long. What is this? She asked, stunned. A record of every expense I covered for you, the Sterling family, and your white moonlight Julian Vance over the last 7 years. I pointed to the first line. 2017. Your birthday party venue and catering. I covered $320,000. 2018. Julian's art gallery had no visitors. I spent $50,000 to hire 50 admirers to fill the room. 2020. Your hospital stay for the stomach ulcer. I hired the best nurses. Total cost, $86,000. I had even included the price of the coffee I bought her every morning, adjusted for inflation. It was accurate to the cent. Evelyn held the papers, her hands shaking. Caleb, you're really nickel-and-diming me like this. Good fences make good neighbors, I said calmly. I was willing to spend that money back then because I viewed it as an investment or a medical bill. But the project is over, and I'm reclaiming my sunk costs. Am I just a business transaction to you? Tears finally fell from her eyes. In the past, one tear would have had me on my knees, begging for forgiveness. Now, I just saw it as a bad performance. Miss Sterling, I said, standing up and straightening my jacket. I don't sell my soul, and I don't buy into sob stories. You owe me this money. Wire transfer or check within 3 days. Otherwise, the demand letter goes to Julian's studio. Why, she sobbed. You don't even need the money. Because it's the principal. I looked her in the eyes. Only when the debt is settled can we truly be strangers. I don't want to think of you in the future and feel like I lost money on a bad deal. Evelyn slumped in her chair, watching me leave. That bill was a slap in the face that stripped away her last bit of pride. She finally understood that the man who once gave her his heart wouldn't even give her a dollar for free now. Today is my birthday. In years past, I would have spent all day cooking a massive meal, only for Evelyn to show up late or forget entirely. But this year, the city's digital billboards were scrolling a message. Happy birthday, Caleb. Evelyn Sterling. She'd even hired drones to fly over the lake in a giant heart shape. It was a spectacle. She was trying to use this gaudy, new money display of regret to win me back. Too bad my phone was off. I was at a small, hole-in-the-wall pasta place on the south side. It only had 6 tables, but the food was incredible. Maya was sitting across from me. She didn't give me a flashy gift. She just handed me a sketch she'd done. It was a drawing of my back as I worked in a darkroom. Happy birthday, Caleb, she said with a warm smile. In front of me was a steaming bowl of carbonara with a single gold candle. Simple, warm, and real. Just as I was about to blow out the candle, the door burst open. Evelyn rushed in. Her hair was a mess from the wind, and her designer gown was spotted with mud. She had clearly searched the whole city to find me in this obscure corner. She was carrying a massive, expensive designer cake box. When she saw me with Maya and the modest little cake on our table, she froze. Caleb, she gasped, her eyes locked on the sketch Maya had given me. I bought every ad screen in the city for you, and you're eating in a place like this? Her voice was shrill, shattering the quiet of the restaurant. The owner poked his head out of the kitchen, frowning. I wiped my mouth with a napkin. It's quiet here. The food is better. I didn't even stand up, and the billboards were too bright. They hurt my eyes. Evelyn marched over and slammed her cake on the table, nearly knocking over my pasta. Come back with me. I have a surprise for you. Everything you ever wanted, Miss Sterling. I moved my hand away from her, leaning back to create distance. You're disturbing my guest. The word guest drew a hard line between us and protected Maya's dignity. Evelyn looked at me in disbelief. I'm your fiancé. She's the guest. Ex-fiancé y corrected. I turned to Maya and gave an apologetic smile. Sorry for the scene. This pasta is better while it's hot. Maya nodded graciously and went back to her meal, completely ignoring the hysterical woman next to us. That silence hurt Evelyn more than an argument ever could. She stood there holding a 5-figure cake, feeling like an unwanted clown. I didn't care. The pasta was delicious. Evelyn has been acting strange lately. She's trying to copy me. Every morning when I leave my apartment, I find a thermos by the door. It's the kind of thing she used to think was beneath her. Inside is plain oatmeal and some burnt eggs. I heard she burned 3 of her fingers trying to learn how to cook. If this were the old me, I'd be frantic, rushing to buy the best burn cream and applying on my knees. Now I just step around the thermos like it's a bag of trash. One evening, it started to drizzle as I left my office. Evelyn was standing there. No umbrella, no driver, just standing in the rain. She was clutching an old, cheap blazer, one she'd once told me to throw away. She'd found it somewhere and cleaned it. The scene was hauntingly familiar. I had stood in the rain just like that countless times for her. When she saw me, her eyes lit up. She ran over, holding out the dry jacket. Caleb, it's raining. Don't get cold. Water dripped from her hair. Her makeup was smudging, and her proud eyes were full of desperate pleading. My colleagues were staring, some even taking photos. She thought that by reenacting my pain, I would feel some kind of sympathy. I just felt annoyed, very annoyed. I stopped and took out my phone. Miss Sterling, your behavior is seriously interfering with my life and work. Caleb, I just want to take care of you. You did it for me. Why can't I? Because I don't want it. I dialed a number. Hello, 911. I'm at the financial center, tower. There's a woman harassing me and obstructing the entrance. Please send someone. Evelyn froze, her face turning paler than the rain. You're calling the police? I've been standing here for an hour, and you're calling the cops. If you want to play the martyr, do it at your mansion. This is a public place. I hung up, opened my umbrella, and walked into the rain. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. The Sterling heiress being detained for harassing her ex-boyfriend was going to be front-page news tomorrow. I didn't have time to care. I had just received another notification. Julian Vance had been arrested. Fraud and illegal solicitation of funds. He had been using a shell company under the Sterling umbrella to wash money without Evelyn's knowledge. To support him, she had signed too many documents without reading them. The man she treated like a white moonlight was actually a parasite who had pushed her toward a legal abyss. And there she was, standing in the rain with a bowl of oatmeal, trying to win back an audience that had already left the theater. How ironic. Evelyn got sick. This time, it wasn't an act. Between the shock of Julian's arrest, the constant stress, and standing in the rain, she developed severe pneumonia that led to myocarditis. Mr. Sterling called me 7 times. This was the man who once looked down on me as a social climber. He sounded broken on the phone. Caleb, I'm begging you. Just come see her. She won't eat. She won't cooperate with the doctors. She just keeps saying your name. The doctors say she's in real danger. Out of basic human decency, I went. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and lilies. Evelyn had wasted away. She was hooked up to an 4, looking skeletal. When I walked in, her dull eyes flared with life. Caleb, I knew you'd come. She struggled to sit up, but I pressed her shoulder down. Stay down, I said. My voice was flat. I'm staying for 10 minutes. Your father said you aren't taking your meds. Evelyn grabbed my hand with surprising strength. If I take them, will you come back? No. I pulled my hand away and tucked the blankets around her with the clinical precision of a nurse. Evelyn, don't use your health as a bargaining chip. I cared once, so it worked. Now, if you starve yourself to death, I'll just send a wreath to the funeral. That's it. How can you be so cruel? She sobbed in her pillow. I know I was wrong. I see Julian for what he is now. He's a monster. Caleb, we had 7 years. How many 7-year stretches do we get in a lifetime? Let's start over. I'll change. I'll change everything. Change. I looked at her, feeling only exhaustion. If you break a mirror and glue it back together, the cracks are still there. Every time you look into it, you won't see yourself. You'll see the scars of the past. I pulled an invitation from my pocket and set it on the nightstand. It was a bright red, gold embossed card. I wasn't going to give you this, fearing it would set back your recovery. But since you're still dreaming, you might as well have the truth. Evelyn's hand trembled as she opened the invitation. Groom, Caleb Thorne. Bride, Maya Quinn. Date, next month. I'm getting married, I said, watching the color drain from her face. Maya is pregnant. I'm looking forward to being a father. For the sake of propriety, we shouldn't see each other again. No, this isn't real. Evelyn shook her head frantically, trying to tear the invitation. It's just paper. Tear it up. The wedding still happens. I turned to leave. Behind me, I heard a glass shatter against the door and Evelyn's gut-wrenching screams. Caleb, you can't do this to me. I won't let you marry her. I walked out and shut the door, sealing away the noise. Her father was standing in the hall, looking ashamed. Mr. Sterling, take care of her. A therapist will be more useful than I am. I nodded and walked away. For the first time, I felt completely light. The wedding was at a small estate in the countryside. No media, no grand spectacle, just close friends and family. It was simple and warm. Maya was in a minimalist silk gown, holding a bouquet of lilies of the valley. She stood in the sunlight, looking like an angel. I looked into her eyes and saw a clear pool of water, reflecting exactly who I was. No games, no power plays, no suffocating emotional labor. Ido. When I said those words, I felt a profound sense of peace. As we were exchanging rings, there was a commotion at the gate. A woman in a wedding dress burst through the security line. It was Evelyn. She was wearing the custom couture gown we were supposed to use for our wedding 3 years ago. Back then, she complained the train wasn't long enough or the diamonds weren't bright enough. Now, the expensive dress hung loose on her thin frame. The hem was covered in mud, and her veil was torn. She looked like she'd escaped from a psychiatric ward. Caleb, she stumbled toward the altar. The guests gasped. You can't marry her. You're mine. Maya gripped my hand. I squeezed it back reassuringly and stepped in front of her. Don't worry. I turned to face Evelyn. No anger, no embarrassment. It was like looking at a stranger who had too much to drink. Security, I said calmly into my mic. Please clear the area. Don't frighten my wife. 4 large security guards surrounded her, stopping her about 15 feet from the aisle. Let go of me. I'm a Sterling. I'm Caleb's fiancé. Evelyn struggled wildly, dropping a bottle of wine she'd been clutching. It shattered, red liquid splashing on her white gown like ugly bloodstains. Miss Sterling, please leave, the guard said, firmly lifting her by the arms. She was dragged away, one of her shoes falling off. She stared at me, her eyes full of raw pleading. Caleb, look at me. I'm wearing the dress you loved. You said I was the most beautiful bride. Look at me. I picked up the microphone and addressed the guests. Apologies, everyone. A stranger had a bit too much to drink and wandered into the wrong venue. Let's continue. A stranger. That was the final word on her role in my life. Evelyn stopped struggling. She went limp like a broken doll as the guards dragged her out. 2 long tracks were left in the grass. Her last desperate, messy mark on my life. I turned back to Maya, took the gold band, and slid it onto her finger. Where was I? Oh, right. I look forward to the rest of our lives, Mrs. Thorne. The sun was perfect. The breeze was cool. The nightmare of Evelyn Sterling was finally over. 5 years later, Berlin. I stood on the stage of an international photography gala, accepting a gold trophy from my collection titled Rebirth. The centerpiece was simple, a ray of light hitting a withered tree trunk, with a tiny green sprout growing from the side. It was a quiet, powerful image. The applause was thunderous. Maya was in the front row, holding our 4-year-old daughter, waving excitedly. After the gala dinner, I took a walk through the streets of Berlin to clear my head. On a bench at a street corner, I saw an Asian woman. She was wearing an outdated trench coat, eating a piece of bread, with bags of cheap souvenirs at her feet. She was arguing with a local man, likely because she was lost or didn't understand the language. Her voice was raspy and tired. As I walked by, she seemed to sense something and turned her head sharply. Our eyes met. Her face had aged. There were wrinkles around her eyes, and her gaze was weary and cynical. But I recognized her instantly. It was Evelyn. I'd heard the Sterling Group eventually went bankrupt and was bought out. She'd sold the family estate to pay off debts and then vanished. I never expected to see her here. She stared at me, forgetting to chew her bread. I was in a custom suit, trophy in hand, radiating the calm of a happy, successful man. She looked like a drifter. Caleb, she whispered, her voice trembling with a flicker of hope. I stopped. I looked at her the way I would look at a tree or a brick wall. No emotion, no hatred. Hatred means you still care. Forgetting is the only true end. I didn't speak. I just gave a polite, tiny nod like I would to any passerby. Then I looked away and kept walking. Sir, she called out behind me. Do we know each other? Just then, Maya and our daughter came out of a convenience store and ran toward me. Daddy, my daughter cried, jumping into my arms. Maya smiled. Who was that, honey? I saw her talking to you. I picked up my daughter with one arm and took Maya's hand with the other. I glanced back at the figure fading into the night. I don't remember, I said with a light, easy smile. Just a stranger asking for directions, I think. The 3 of us walked away, our laughter blending into the Berlin night. Whether that stranger was crying behind us or full of regret didn't matter. In my story, there was no more Evelyn Sterling. Story complete.